So, George Osborne is passionate about it, but his predecessor, Alistair Darling, isn't. One of our guests of the day, Cheryl Gillan, hates the project. What am I talking about? High Speed 2, of course. Here's what the Chancellor had to say on the MAR programme yesterday.
I'm passionate about this project because time and again we have this debate in our country about how we're going to bring the gap between the north and the south together, how we're going to make sure that our growth is not just on the City of London, based on the City of London, as we've been talking about. High Speed 2 is about changing the economic geography of this country, making sure the north and the Midlands benefit from recovery as well.
That. It's the question of the opportunity cost, the other things the money could be spent on. So I ask Ian, is there a cap of any kind on this project?
Well, we've set a budget of £42 billion for the construction costs with a £14 billion contingency. And I've got an excellent team, including Lord Dighton, the man who delivered the Olympic Games, working to deliver this.
Right, well, you've got nothing to worry about, Cheryl Gillan. The Chancellor's said it. He's reassured you. He's animated and excited about this project.
Absolutely. It's going to be all perfect, isn't it? It's going to heal the north-south divide. It's the next coming. This is rubbish. I mean, if anything, if this project were to go ahead in any way, shape or form, it ought to start in the north anyway and link up the northern cities if it's going to have any effect on the economy. But the fact is the business case is appalling on this project. It's going to cost, even by independent economic assessors' standards, each household £3,000 each. It's not going to be completed for the next 20 to 30 years. It's already blown its budget not once, twice, but 3 times. There isn't
Has it already blown its budget by that much? I thought they'd just gone over at the moment. The estimates were over about £8 billion.
Oh, no, I think it's more than that because it went from £33 billion to £42 billion.
That's right, and 42...
Then it was discovered that that didn't include the rolling stock, so it went to £50 billion. Then you've had some analysis done by independent economic advisors that have said, but this is just the tip of the iceberg because you cannot even realise the so-called economic benefits unless there's a great deal more expenditure along the route. But can I just say for this one point that there is very few people and organisations that know what they're talking about that are now supporting this. The IOD, the CBI, the National Audit Office, the Major Projects Authority, the IEA. We've even had the NEF come out against it. And I think it's about time that our government actually cancelled this project and said it is not value for money. There is a better way of spending 50 to 80 billion pounds.
Right. Many MPs that I've spoken to on this programme, certainly from the Midlands upwards, say without it there will definitely be a north-south divide, that it is absolutely crucial that this rail link is built and completed.
Well, it's absolutely crucial that we improve the nature of communications.
But do we do it with this line?
Well, this is one way of doing it. I mean, I've got rather personal views. I'd rather like the Edinburgh to Aberdeen section of the East Coast Main Line electrified, and that would be money, in my view, well spent, not least because it goes through my constituency.
Well, you may say that, exactly.
But the point I'm going to make is this. Look, what have we got to do? We've got to we've got to reduce congestion. We've got to improve the quality of the existing network.
So you're against it, by the sounds of it?
Well, no. If it achieves these objectives... Now, I haven't studied it, obviously,
in the
same detail that Cheryl Gillan has. But the point I do want to make is this, that unless we do have projects of this kind and accept that in having them, there will no doubt be impacts of some kind on the environment, which we can do our best to mitigate, then the country will simply freeze. It will freeze up.
Do you agree with that? Are you still a fan of High Speed 2? I mean, Alistair Darling has said he's changed his mind. He doesn't think it'll bring value for money, and he raises the point that Min Campbell has just said other parts of the network will suffer.
Well, Alistair also makes, I think, an interesting point, which is his fear is that it will hollow out the cities rather than by making it easier to get to London and so forth, rather than build the centres of those cities. And I think that that's a point, that is an argument that needs to be tested. But, in principle, big infrastructure projects are invariably controversial. But I think that the economic case is very strong. The capacity case is very strong.
That's
you can't
not right,
take 1,500 people standing regularly in trains out of Euston at rush hour.
Even by the government's own figures, there was less than half the capacity on the trains coming out of Euston. And they tried to keep those...
will be full, Cheryl Gillan, that's the point, isn't it?
They tried to keep those figures under under wraps until the judicial review.
But look at the growth in passenger
But
numbers.
look at the change in business practices, and also look, Ming, exactly what you've been saying. Look at the alternatives in which this money could be spent. If you look at the New Economics Foundation, they laid out a whole programme.
Are you opposed to projects of this kind on principle, or is it because of the particular circumstances?
No, let me say.
Let me finish, if I may. Attached to the HS2.
Let me say, I started off objecting to this because of the damage it did in my constituency. Since then, I have looked at this project in detail. I no longer believe that there is a valid business case, that it is good value for money, and I strongly believe there are better ways of spending this capital. For example, you have just given one on the East Coast Main Line.
Can I just ask,
the very example
before we
yourself.
finish this bit, will it happen?
Well, it has to have cross-party support, and I hope that our support
Labour's
for
support,
it,
then.
it does.
Peter
And I
Mandelson
hope
hates
that,
it, of course, but
I hope that it can go forward on that basis with absolute clarity that this is cross-party support until it's completed.
I think it's time for an independent review on this.
I think derailed?
I think it's probably going to be derailed.
Well,
I think it needs an independent review. I think we need to look at the alternatives.
Final word,
Great
Ming.
pity if it is.
It's a lot of money, no question about that. The next government that comes in, irrespective of colour, will sit down and ask itself whether or not it can afford a project of this kind.